You got it as a new grad? You're so lucky. You got this job as a new grad? Oh my gosh, how did you do that? You're so lucky. And all I could say was, no, I'm not lucky, I'm blessed. Yes. And welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Nurse Nas, and you know, on this channel is everything nursing related, makeup related, lifestyle related. It's your one-stop shop. But in this video, it's my highly requested video, how I became a LND nurse, which is a labor and delivery nurse in Toronto, Canada. It's going to be like a story time of how it came to be. And when I tell you, this is not like a traditional way of how literally someone becomes a nurse. And when I say that, I'm telling you, literally, God is the one that put me in this position. He is the one that literally led me to this job. It's all by God's might, like not mine at all. And I'm also going to be sharing some things of what will help you to become a labor and delivery nurse, because once I did become a labor and delivery nurse, I found that there were some things that I knew was needed to become a labor and delivery nurse. So if you're someone who is also struggling with trying to get into the field, stick around, because I will be sharing to you what you will need to make your resume stand out. But yeah, stay tuned to hear my story time. So as some of you guys may or may not know, I became a labor and delivery nurse right out of nursing school. It was my first ever job at all, period. So once I was out of nursing school, I basically traveled. I went back to my homeland in Ghana. I knew that this was honestly the last time I would be able to have time to myself where I can actually take a very long vacation, because once you start working, handing in those vacation requests and things like that, and getting, like, for me, I was 9 weeks off in Ghana. It's hard to get that. So I knew that once I became a nurse, I'm gonna be a nurse for life, you know? So like now it's time to like enjoy. You know, I just finished school, relaxed. I took my time with studying for the NCLEX. I'll go over how I studied for the NCLEX and let me know in the comment section if you would want to know that. I'm gonna do it anyways. So basically I graduated, went on a break. In the fall, I relaxed and everything, started studying for my NCLEX in October. Finally wrote my exam in January, passed. Then it was time to look for a job. So when it came to looking for my job, I made sure I had my resume, my cover letters, everything was on point. Let me know if you would like to know how I, you know, did my resume, my cover letters and everything like that. Let me know down in the comment section. And don't forget to like this video, guys. It helps. So like this video, make sure you subscribe and all that. But yeah, so time to look for a job. So looking for a job, that was like honestly like so frustrating. You have to be very patient. When I was looking for a job, it was 2018, and a lot of the requirements was like, oh, like, you know, you need this much experience and things like that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, even in nursing, they want you to have experience when it comes to certain specialties. Labor and delivery was one of them, and it was just like the job market was like, you know, they want this type of experience, this type of experience. The jobs that you would get is like a resource nurse, like that's like the ones that they're like, okay, fine, like, you know, apply for this and you can kind of get in, as well as med surg. There was a lot of jobs for that you really didn't need any prior experience to. Me working clinicals and nursing school, I knew that med surg wasn't something that I was very interested in at all. So I was very picky when it came to looking for a job. And you know, as a new grad, you know, you're probably thinking you should have humbled yourself, but I'm like, no, I want a job that I can actually go into, that I will enjoy, that I will really like, because it's gonna be the bulk of your time. So I was very picky and I wasn't really hearing back from anything. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should be less picky with my search. So then after I started looking for resource jobs and like I saw like oncology posts, I'm like, okay, that seems like, you know, a little different. But even then they went with someone with more experience. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, when am I gonna get a job? That is where God is so good. I just had faith that like God was going to get me my job, that God was going to lead me to whatever position he knew that I was meant to be in. So I just, you know, kept faith, knowing that God will provide, God will guide. It's all in God's hands, because I'm doing the best that I can. I was with a company, I'm not sure, like they basically were helping like students who were coming out of school and things like that, like, you know, in terms of resumes, cover letters. So my resume and cover letter was on point. point, guys. And again, let me know if it is a video you would like me to go over how to write a resume, a good resume and cover letter. But yeah, I was just like, okay, so what is the problem? What is the issue? How come I'm not getting like, you know, callbacks? I did go through an interview. I thought it went well, again, like I said, but they went with someone with more experience, and that was as a resource nurse. And then, you know, another thing, when God says no, it's for a good reason, because once I found out what type of jobs like resource nurses had to do and like how they sometimes got the worst patient on the unit and things like that, okay, there's blessings in the no. There's reasons for the no. So if God is saying no, there is a reason for that. So God blessed me and shielded me from that no, but I was still persistent. I'm like, I can do this. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And you know, that's my mantra. That is my favorite verse. So I just felt God saying like, you'll get a job. You will get a job. Finally, May came. I just had a feeling. I just had like, you know, I felt God telling me like, you're gonna get a job. Stop like, you know, doing worldly things. Focus on God. Be persistent. You will get there. You can do this. So kept the faith going. I just knew in May, I knew like I'm getting a job. Like I just felt it in my spirit. I felt God telling me, you're gonna get a job. You are going to get a job. Anyway, so there was this RNAO fair. So RNAO is Registered Nurses Ontario Association, but basically they're like the voices for nurses in Ontario, and they were having a fair during nursing week. They had people in HR who were there to help you with your resume building. So I'm like, okay, so at this point I don't have a job, let me just bring my resume, and I had like 3 copies of my resume. Let me just bring my resume to kind of just skim through the resume and just see and hear them out of like what they're saying a resume should be. So I went to the fair and there was like a PowerPoint presentation of resumes and things like that, and while they're presenting, I'm looking over my resume and I'm like, literally everything they're saying that they look for, my resume is covering it to the T. In terms of the cover letter, in terms of the resume, I had it all. So I'm just like, okay, so like they just don't want me. But you know, it just takes time. God said not yet, you're not ready. Anyway, so then after the presentation was over, I was just like, okay, let me just like go around, because it was advertised as a health fair. So like, you know, I went around and I saw that there was actually some jobs that were there. They were more agency jobs, and if you know about agency jobs, they kind of like pay you less than what like a government job would pay you. So let's say your starting pay is like $30, they're gonna pay you like $27, like a little couple dollars off. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. They had some agency jobs, but it's like more for like nursing homes, and I'm like, don't want to do that. Again, I'm picky, because I'm like, no, I gotta do something that I will enjoy. But I'm just like, no, I cannot do this. So I'm like, okay, I went through it, and after there was one was like, oh, babysitting, like they need a nurse. I'm like, oh, I like babies. I'm like, let me give them a resume there. And I just felt God saying, Manasa, you only brought 3 copies just because you thought it was just like reviewing your resume. So you only brought 3 copies. So you gave one out, you only have 2 more. So keep them with you and kind of just like browse around and see what's actually there. So I'm browsing around other agency jobs, nursing homes, things like that. Then I'm hearing like kind of chatter like, oh, this hospital's there, this hospital's there. And it's like a hospital that was newer, and I was just like, oh, like, you know, I've heard about this hospital. And I was just like, okay, let me like just actually save this resume, you know, listen to the Holy Spirit. I'm very spiritual, and I believe that the Holy Spirit's within us and will guide us. And I'm just like, okay, let me just listen. Other people will call it their intuition and things like that. So I'm like, let me just hold on to these resumes, look around, browse around. And I went to this hospital that was there, and the line was the longest line. So many people were there, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is an opportunity, this is a chance. Like, you know, you're actually like there in person with someone who's representing HR reps who are actually from that hospital, instead of like going online and doing it from that way. I was lining up waiting, and there was this lady who comes up, and I see her, and the thing is, I see her and I see another lady, and I went to the other lady to line up. And then this lady that I didn't go to, she was still standing there, and she was done with everyone, like whoever she was seeing. And I saw her walking towards me, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, and it was so weird like that. I'm like, oh, this lady's like coming towards me, and I noticed her before, but I went to this other lady, but now she's coming to me. So she's coming to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, hi. She's like, hi. And before she could really introduce herself to, I'm like, oh, like, you know, these people were in front of me, because I knew it was kind of going to turn into like exchanging of resumes. And there was people ahead of me, but she came right to me. There was like 3 people ahead of me, but they were like grouped together, and technically they are in front of me in the line. So I'm like, oh, like, do you want to see them first? She saw them, and she like just took their resume. She's like, oh, thank you. And after she came back to me, and she's like, oh, hi. I'm like, hi. She's like, so tell me about yourself. And I was just like, okay, hi, my name is Manasa. I'm a recent grad at the University of Windsor. I did my preceptorship in maternity, in like labor and delivery and postpartum. And she's like, oh, well, my name is blank and I'm actually the manager of labor and delivery of this hospital. And I'm just like, God is good. So I'm just like, wow, oh, okay. You know, I'm like a little more nervous, like, oh wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. So she's like talking with me and she's very intrigued and she's just like, let's go to like a more quiet spot. So we go to an empty booth and we're just sitting and she's telling me to just talk about my experience. So I'm like, oh, I actually worked in labor and delivery, but it was labor and delivery and postpartum in Windsor because the hospitals have like one labor and delivery unit and the nurses rotate postpartum and labor and delivery. So I followed my nurse doing both, interacting with parents, doing deliveries, C-sections, things like that. And then she's just like, okay, I'm actually going to get some papers. I want to interview you. Like in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, she wants to interview me. Thank you, Jesus. But you know, in reality, I'm like, okay. So she goes away. I remember this like it was yesterday. She goes away and she comes back with like this big fold of paper. And then she flips through the page and she's like, so I'm just gonna ask you some interview questions. Don't be nervous. I'm just like, okay, you know, I didn't really prepare for this, but okay. Never deny an opportunity, guys, just go for it. And I just felt God in the room. Like I just felt God, like, you know, this is it. So now it's time for me to like, you know, she's asking the question. So she goes to her first question and she goes with, a 30-weeker comes in laboring, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like listening like, my gosh, like, damn, I forget everything because I did not prepare for this. It's been like almost a year since I've been out of school. But even then, even with me doing my preceptorship, it wasn't that deep. Like, so she's asking me very specific questions, laboring questions. And I'm just like, honestly, I did not like, you know, really review. She's like, it's okay. And then like, I was just telling her what I would do from what I saw in my experience. You know, I'm not gonna just say I don't know and not try. I tried, and she actually guided me through the answers. And she would tell me like what you should do. We were just talking and she was asking more questions, conflict questions too, like what you would do. I'm just like going with the flow, saying from what I've experienced as a student nurse while I was precepting. Some of the answers I honestly did not know, but I would be like, I would try to do this, 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 and if I didn't have the information, would go to blah, blah, blah. You know, just faking it till we make it, you know? So then after all that was done, she liked me and she was just like, okay, so we're gonna do a more formal like type interview. I'm gonna have an HR representative contact you, and she's just like, just review your notes, aka study, like make sure you like review everything, laboring and things like that. So I'm like, okay, I will. So on Monday, I got an email or a call, I forget, from the HR representative, and they told me that the manager, she was gonna be leaving on vacation. So I had Tuesday to Thursday was the last day I can do my interview. I chose Thursday because I wanted to prepare, I wanted to study. So I chose that day to see the manager. So went to the interview. I'm like, okay, you know, go in and everything's good. She was there across the table with the clinical practice leader. They introduced themselves and they're like, okay, Vanessa, tell me about yourself. And I'm like, ugh, like literally like lip shaking. I was about to speak and I like stuttered. And then she's just like, do you want some water? I'm like, sorry, I'm just nervous. I'll just start all over again. And I went and just talked about myself. I told them again the history that I had in terms of maternity. Just told them about that. They were just like, oh, okay, that's good. And then they're just like, do you have any questions for us? I asked them the questions and afterwards they're like, okay. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, you know, that's it. And then after the clinical practice leader leaves and the manager is just like, okay, I'm just gonna show you around the unit. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you know, she just probably just wants to show me around. I didn't even know what to think. And then she started introducing me as a new hire, introducing me to the nurses. And I'm just like, I'm hired? Thank you, Jesus. And I'm like, oh, hi, you know, introducing myself to the nurses that are there, the clerks that are there. And I was just like, what the heck? She didn't ask me any interview questions or anything like that. So basically that interview that we did was like her hiring me. And I was just like, God, it's so good. Always have faith, always believe no matter what. Like in my way, it was very unconventional how I got the job. Like it's not in like the traditional format and way, but I was always patient and persistent. I knew what I wanted and I didn't lose faith and hope and just kept going. And I just felt it in my bones that I was gonna get it. And in May, I got that job. And it was literally all by God's grace, his might. Situations like, you know, when people are like, is God there? Is he there? He's there. He's with you in every way. And there's a reason for no's. There's the reasons why you have to wait longer. When you're waiting, he's shaping you up. He's shaping you to be the best version of yourself so that when you do get what you want, you're ready for it. You're prepared for it and you could handle it. It was amazing that I was able to get this job in that manner where it's just literally like fell into my lap. Like, I got hired on the spot, and it was that. So now for those of you who like, you know, it might not happen to you that way. In other ways for you to get your resume to stand out in terms of those who want to be a labor and delivery nurse, once I got hired, I had 6 months to get my NRP. It's your neonatal resuscitation program. So the neonatal resuscitation program is basically like CPR for babies. So it's to learn how to resuscitate babies after deliveries and things like that, how to revive a baby that comes out like not breathing. You learn about the oxygen machine, so CPAP, PPV, all these terms might sound like, what is that? That course will teach you everything. So for me, I didn't have the certificate for that course because I didn't take the course. And they gave us 6 months upon hire to get that certificate, and the hospital provided it. So it was free. But if you're in a position where you're looking for a L&D job and you're unable to get that job, do that course so that you have that certificate. You can add that to your resume. That will make your resume stand out. Another very important thing is your fetal health surveillance course. That will make your resume pop out. So your fetal health surveillance course is basically a course that teaches you how to monitor the fetal heart rate. And that's very important when it comes to labor and delivery, because the bulk of what you're doing, especially if you have a patient that is coming for an induction, which means that you're starting their labor. When you have a laboring woman, that has to be on the monitor, and the monitor, you have to hear the baby's heart rate, and then it tracks the heart rate and you see the heart rate. It teaches you how to read what is normal, what is abnormal, what is atypical. It teaches you how to define it. It teaches you what to do in terms of if the baby's heart is abnormal or atypical, what is the next step for you to do to resuscitate the baby in utero. So that means in the womb and things like that. It's very important. As a labor and delivery nurse, you must know the baby's heart rate. Not only that, it teaches you how to monitor contractions. What is too much contractions? Is it tachysystole, which is too much contraction? So the baby's heart rate's going down because the baby's not breathing, because every time you have a contraction, the baby's not getting oxygen and things like that. You gotta learn. And it seems like a lot, but it actually isn't. It's like the bulk of the job. So you're gonna be practicing it every time. So like once I did the course, because I knew nothing, guys. I came into it knowing nothing. So once I actually took the course, once I was getting trained, they're teaching you as you go too. So I did feel prepared. Like, you know, you never feel 100% prepared because it's like all new to you and you're practicing. But after like, you know, a while of like doing it and you're like learning about the different heart rates, what's normal, what's atypical. Sometimes like something's atypical and you think it's like abnormal, or something's normal and you're like, is it atypical? Like you're really like new to it. But then you know, you get the hang of it, you learn about it more and things like that, you'll be fine. So those are two things that if you're a nurse in a different field and you want to get into labor and delivery, or let's say you're looking for a job in labor and delivery and you are not getting a job as of yet, taking those two, so the fetal health surveillance course, your neonatal resuscitation program, taking those two and having that added to your resume will have employers looking at your resume like, ooh, they really trying to be a labor and delivery nurse. They already got the two that they needed, and it will make your resume stand out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it inspires you to trust in God that no matter what you're going through and where you are in life, there is a reason for it. Always remain faithful and persistent, and know that you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. Just set on your goal and keep going, keep working to achieve it. Never ever give up. And there's a reason for everything. There's people who worked on my unit who worked on, let's say, med surg for years, and like that person who worked in med surg, she worked in it for so long, like I think like 3 years, like before she even got into L&D in the same hospital. L&D is like fire, as in like people just didn't want to leave. Like they loved their L&D position. No one wanted to leave. It was so hard as a new grad to even get it. So like people were telling me, they're like, oh my gosh, you got it as a new grad? You're so lucky. You got this job as a new grad? Oh my gosh, how did you do that? You're so lucky. And all I could say was, no, I'm not lucky, I'm blessed. Honestly, it was all God. Like God blessed me, God led me to that position, and being in the L&D field and being a bedside nurse in that position, I knew this was like the best bedside nursing position. I knew if I had any other nursing position that was bedside nursing, I probably would have quit nursing altogether. I had coworkers who were in other fields of nursing that they're like, I was about to quit until I got into L&D. So God putting me into that position as my first job as a new grad nurse, I knew that he knew that like, Manasseh, this is a job for you, or else you would have quit nursing altogether. and he just knows, and I'm just so grateful. So always pray on it, always have faith, always know that God's got you. And I hope that these tips helped and that my story inspires you to keep going, keep pushing yourself to be the best that you can, and when it's out of your hands, know that God is in control. But thank you for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Let me know down in the comment section if you want to know more L&D videos. Make sure you like this video, okay? Like this video, and make sure to follow me on social media. I have TikTok, Instagram, and I also have Twitter, which I really am not that active. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.